Welcome to Make the Pivot. Today we are introducing the Purpose Playbook and putting purpose into practice through shared value. I'm Bobbie Sultan, Managing Director of the Shared Value Initiative and one of your co-hosts today.
Good afternoon, my name is Dane Smith. I'm your other co-host. I'm a Managing Director of FSG, a nonprofit mission-driven consulting company founded by Professor Michael Porter and Mark Kramer 20 years ago. I lead our corporate practice and our internal purpose team, which focuses on helping companies develop ambitious and authentic purpose-led business strategies. And Bobbie and I are very excited today to have an opportunity to share this important tool that can help all of you chart a clear path to having a meaningful purpose that creates social impact and business impact at scale.
Thanks, Dane. So we're really excited to have all of you here. We are an oversubscribed webinar, so clearly there's interest. Little did we know when we started working on this playbook about 2 years ago that we would be launching it during a global pandemic. And if anything, COVID-19 has underscored for all of us the importance for companies to have a purpose beyond profits. And we hope that this playbook will really help put that purpose into action. So there are a couple things that I also want to share with you before we get into the discussion, a couple of announcements that we have. So every year, the Shared Value Initiative usually does a leadership summit. And this year, due to COVID-19, we have had to move to a virtual platform. And we are calling that speaker series Resilience Reimagined, which is a very topical topic given the times that we're in. And we couldn't be more thrilled to have as our very first speaker, Harvard Business School professor, Rebecca Henderson. She just released a terrific book called Reimagining Capitalism in a World on Fire. And she's going to be speaking via webinar on June the 3rd. Mark Kramer will be interviewing her as well as part of that programming. So go to our website to sign up for this program. It is open to the public. The other announcement I want to share is that starting tomorrow at noon Eastern Time, the Fortune Change the World list call for applications for 2020 will open up. And so again, you could go to our website to find out more information about how to apply for that recognition. Now I'm going to move it over to Dane, and he's going to take us through a quick poll.
Great. So before we go forward, we would love for you all to take a few seconds to respond to this poll. We're trying to get a sense of where folks are on their purpose journey. So please take a few seconds to answer. It's worth mentioning that we define purpose as being a company's reason for being that simultaneously helps solve a social problem and creates significant financial value for the company. And as we're going to discuss further over the course of the next hour, this means that purpose needs to be at the center of a company's business strategy. So, let's see, as we're going to see in terms of the results of the poll, many of us are at different stages in the journey. The path to becoming a purpose-led company is unique for each organization. There's no single recipe, but there are common behaviors and activities a company must pursue to help shared value to be successful, regardless of what type of company you are or where you're based or what impact area you're operating within. Our Purpose Playbook brings all those ideas into one place to help companies put purpose into practice through shared value. So as you can see here, we appear to have a pretty advanced audience. 45% of you are saying that your purpose guides everything that you do. 36% of you say that purpose shows up in many of your practices and policies. 16% say that the purpose shows up in a few practices and policies, and just 4% are saying that purpose is just words. We've designed this Purpose Playbook, as you're going to see, to be helpful for you, whatever stage you are at in your journey. So I want to talk a little bit about the genesis of the playbook. The idea of the Purpose Playbook came directly from shared value practitioners like you, and was designed with input from more than 20 shared value companies that have helped us in this process. All these businesses are implementing strategies that make their companies more competitive and more profitable by helping to solve social and environmental problems. Now, shared value has been around for about a decade. While not all companies are familiar with the concept, many businesses embrace shared value and why it is imperative, but continue to struggle with how to bring their shared value efforts to life. So a couple of years ago, the Shared Value Initiative and FSG started working on a roadmap for companies looking to increase the positive impact of their corporate purpose on society by focusing on this how. We developed the playbook integrating 2 decades of insights that FSG has garnered from helping companies around the world develop and strengthen purpose strategies and maximize impact on society and business. We've also incorporated vital input and guidance from practitioners and thought leaders that are advancing the shared value movement every day. We're going to hear from several of those leaders over the course of the next hour. First, we'll hear from Professor Michael Porter of Harvard Business School, co-founder of FSG and the Shared Value Initiative. And Professor Porter is going to share insights with us on the meaning of purpose and how shared value is integral to company purpose. Then we'll hear from Mark Kramer, co-founder of FSG and co-author of the original shared value idea, about the imperative for companies to activate purpose and to hear some innovative examples of companies making the pivot. Then Bobby and I will introduce the elements of the playbook. Finally, Marta Herrera of CEMEX, Erin Byrne of Novo Nordisk, and Gayle Lee of the Shared Value Project Hong Kong will share a few ways you all can apply the Purpose Playbook to your purpose work. So let's go first to Michael Porter. Professor Porter couldn't join us today, but he recorded a brief video message from his office at Harvard Business School to share with you, and we'll go to that now.
So welcome everyone, and we're so pleased that you could join us for this introduction of the Purpose Playbook, which is a big milestone in this field and something that we at Shared Value Initiative are very proud of. Let me talk a little bit about why we did this, why it's important, and maybe most importantly, how you might be able to use this and continue to use it over time. I think we all know that purpose has become a very rapidly growing area of discussion and focus on the part of business leaders around the world. It's truly an inflection point for that whole concept, which was introduced a number of years ago by Larry Fink in a letter to virtually every CEO of a major company. But ultimately, it started out sort of as an abstract idea. I think now what's starting to happen is people are trying to engage in actually doing something. And that's what this Purpose Playbook is all about. Interestingly, the COVID crisis has elevated even more the interest and the focus on this idea. Because today, companies feel that they must see a purpose and be able to articulate that purpose to their customers. And customers today expect this. And they feel that any company today, given the environment we're in, needs to make a positive contribution, not just think narrowly in traditional ways about profit or shareholder value. However, even with the best of intentions, the idea of purpose is still not clear. There's a lack of clarity about what it is, what it means, and even more confusion about what to do to actually achieve it. And that's really what this Purpose Playbook is about. It's a little bit about the how. Actually, it's a little bit about the what, but it's mostly about the how. We need to have a shared understanding of what purpose means, but what's more important is to make it into reality, to actually do it. And that's the how part. And this playbook is designed to provide that foundational knowledge that we all need. So to make purpose powerful, to make it matter, as opposed to just be a slogan or a buzzword or a declaration of good intentions, to make purpose powerful, it must be involving creating shared value. It's not just the company giving something to society or contributing something to society. That isn't powerful enough. What we've learned is that if we really want to move the needle on societal issues and societal problems, we need to do it through the business, using the business itself as part of strategy. And that makes purpose, first of all, well implemented, but it also makes it scalable. If you're using a profitable business model to deliver your purpose, then you can deliver that purpose as much as you want to as many people as possible. It's only your energy that limits you, not any economics. So shared value is critical at this moment because it's an idea that's been around for some time, but it's providing really the deeper way of understanding how to make purpose matter. And of course, we've had a lot of buzzwords in this general field of social impact, like double bottom line and win-win and all this kind of stuff. All those phrases have come and gone, but the purpose, to make purpose powerful, we have to turn it into something real, turn it into something tangible. So the purpose is the why should companies do something, and the most common definition of that is this is our fundamental reason for being. That's kind of if I had to pick one way of defining purpose now that's used in practice, it would be that. So we decide what our fundamental reason for being is, and that's got to be connected to our business. It can't just be a random good thing to do. And then the shared value part is the how. How do we go about benefiting society and moving the needle on an important social issue through the business with a business model so that we can scale it and improve it and drive it over time? That's ultimately the combination that we have to put in place in more and more organizations. It's happening, but there's a long way to go, and all of you part of this session today are going to be the key actors in that process. This Purpose Playbook, as I've said, brings clarity, or tries to bring clarity about how to actually deliver on the promise of creating shared value. And the shared value relates to the purpose. You define a purpose, and then the kind of shared value you want to create really derives from that. And this playbook is designed to give you sort of the game plan for how you can actually do that in a company. And so there's going to be much discussion about this. The session will be a very rich session. This is a big step forward in this entire movement. The fact that we are now having so many companies thinking this way is a huge breakthrough. It's the most optimistic thing that's happened, in business for many, many years. That we've got companies thinking this way, moving this way, and feeling like this is part of their job. And we really have an opportunity now to move the needle on society's important challenges if we can get the business community behind it. Now, we intend at the initiative to continue to learn about shared value, to improve how to do it, to improve the practice, to continue to learn better about the results. And we will really be interested in what you encounter as you start using this playbook. And we like to ask that all of you are be willing to share your experiences with us. Because I think the more we can have a common set of best practices in a very new area that most companies don't know much about, how do we actually do this, I think the faster we'll go, the more impact we'll have, and the better the opportunities we have in this society will grow. And by the way, this is not just the US, it's everywhere. Every country has the same need for businesses to matter more than just narrowly through the business as it's traditionally defined. So thank you for being here. We'll look forward to getting your feedback. We'll look forward to your ideas for how you need something more than we are able to give you in this document so far, but we'll do it if we can work in a partnership with all of you on this, arguably the most important agenda right now for the United States and many other countries. So thank you very much, and enjoy the day.
It was great to hear from Michael Porter. I understand that those of you that dialed in by phone rather than connecting via computer may not have been able to hear the Michael Porter message. Want to urge you to check out the recording afterwards, because the recording will both have the video and audio. Our apologies for that little snafu in the technology. We're all learning new things every day about how to manage this. I particularly appreciate in Michael's comments him indicating that during this challenging time, when many of us feel a bit pessimistic about the economy and the well-being of our society, that a focus on company purpose is something that's optimistic and can energize and encourage all of us as far as having more of an impact in the world. Next, I'd like to turn to FSG and Shared Value Initiative co-founder Mark Kramer. Mark, can you share a few words with our audience?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. Thank you very much. First of all, good day, and thank you for joining us. You know, Michael and I have spent almost a decade now giving talks around the world, insisting that business and society are interdependent, that you can't have a successful business in a failing society, and you can't have a successful, healthy society without strong, competitive businesses. But I have to say, I never thought we would see such a graphic illustration of this principle as we are living through now with the COVID-19 crisis. It is so clear that our economy cannot function without a healthy population. And it's equally clear that we cannot solve this crisis we're in without depending on the private sector to create the vaccines, to create the ventilators, to manage the hospitals and healthcare delivery, to create the personal protective equipment and masks that we need to solve this problem. So I think that one of the consequences of the terrible tragedy that we're living through is to really demonstrate clearly that business and society need each other. We have seen that our society is not resilient by any measure. We have also seen deeply painful racial disparities in who is most deeply affected by this crisis, and the painful problems of the economic inequality that has grown so much in the past couple decades are also very much on display. Lastly, I think we have also learned that capitalism needs strong government to survive. The idea that capitalism can take care of itself without the support and the regulation of government has clearly, I think, been refuted. You know, we have lived in a world that has tolerated superficiality. It has enabled us to publish glossy sustainability reports, to claim that we are pursuing the Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations developed, to fill out endless checklists about ESG performance and criteria, and to begin to believe that that was enough. Well, I think it is clear that these things are not enough, that to build a resilient economy and society to respond to this crisis, we actually need to change how we operate our business. These superficial promises and slogans and publications are not sufficient. So the question is, how can we pivot? How can we rebuild not the society and economy that we had before this crisis, but one that is truly resilient, truly equitable, sustainable, and even more profitable than the world that we have been living in? And we believe that embracing a purpose and embracing this concept of creating shared value is central to making that pivot to a more successful society. You know, this idea of creating shared value is not a crisis response framework. It is much more long-term, but it does have real implications for how companies can respond to the crisis. First of all, it can be a source of inspiration. Second, it can be a guiding framework for the response. And third, it can be a way that companies can truly find an important purpose behind their work that they may not have discovered before. Let me give you just a couple examples. Walmart has become one of the world leaders in its commitment to creating shared value through its work with its employees and the opportunities that it has given them, through its environmental impact, not just of its own operations, but those of its suppliers. Through many different dimensions, it has become a real leader. What was the source of that inspiration to embrace creating shared value? Well, it really goes back to the devastating floods after the Katrina hurricane in the United States, where communities were devastated. And Lee Scott, the CEO of Walmart at that time, said to all of the employees at Walmart in those regions and elsewhere, do whatever you can do to help. We're not concerned about the cost. Give away our products. Do everything you can to be of help. And Walmart responded. And it made the employees so proud to have been able to play such an important role in responding. And Lee Scott said to his employees, what if every day we could feel as proud as we do today? And that was the beginning of Walmart fully embracing the idea of creating shared value and a social purpose as part of its business model. As I said, shared value can also be a guiding framework for how to respond. We've been working on a teaching case for Harvard Business School around the company PayPal that handles online payments. PayPal adopted a purpose to democratize access to financial services so that even low-income populations have full and inexpensive access to a range of financial services. That has led them to develop a loan product for small business called PayPal Working Capital that has been extremely helpful in providing loans to small businesses that might not have qualified for traditional loans or traditional credit. A disproportionate number of these loans go to businesses that are owned and operated by women or by people of color and in neighborhoods where many of the major banks have left. Having that program has enabled PayPal to respond by advancing loans to tens of millions of small businesses with a speed that the US government and the Small Business Administration could not begin to match, delivering tremendous benefit and incidentally growing the business for PayPal during this time of crisis. And I mentioned that creating shared value can also be a way for companies to find a sense of purpose. And in a time like now, when so many people are struggling to make ends meet, are falling behind on rent payments, on credit card payments, I think of the example of National Australia Bank, who a few years ago completely rethought their credit collections department to say, instead of assuming that we just need to leverage these people, hound them, try and collect money any way we can, let's try and understand why the people who are behind on their credit card payments have actually fallen behind. And when they looked into it, they found it wasn't because people were bad people or didn't want to pay. It was because they had lost a job or had an illness or gone through a divorce, the kinds of things that we see behind the crisis today. They completely restructured their collections department, not to hound people, but to help people work their way out of debt, to provide new payment arrangements, to extend additional credit, to connect people to social services. The result is that more than 90% of the people who had fallen behind were caught up within 3 months. And it actually saved the bank nearly $100 million a year of bad debt that they were able to collect by changing their model from hammering people to collect to helping people rebuild. These, I think, are the kinds of stories and inspirations that can lead us to embrace purpose. And that's why I think the Purpose Playbook and the work that Bobbi and Dane and the team at the Shared Value Initiative have done is so important, because there really is an opportunity today to think about not just our bottom line and our short-term profit, but to think about how do we enhance the well-being of all of our stakeholders in a way to create a world that is more resilient, that is more equitable, that is more sustainable. Imagine with me for a moment what it would be like to wake up in a world where every business you interact with has truly embraced a social purpose to help all of its stakeholders succeed. Think for a moment about how differently that world would have responded to the crisis we're living in today. Think for a moment about the new economic opportunities and business models that can be created from such a different perspective. I don't know about you, but that's the kind of world I would very much like to live in. And the Purpose Playbook is our first step in helping each of you work within your own companies to try and deliver on that vision. Thank you very much for being with us today. I'm excited to dive into what the playbook actually says. And for that, let me turn this back over to Bobbie Sultan.
Mark, thank you so much for that inspiring talk, and always insightful. And just really want to thank you for your continued thought leadership to advance shared value and its practice, and your work with Michael Porter just to continue to fuel the movement. So thank you so much for being here and for those thoughtful words. So let's now move into the playbook. And when we started working on this playbook, it was actually focused on shared value and the how of shared value. So you heard Michael Porter talk about this, that this is the most important work that we could be doing. And in fact, that's what he said to me when I took this job, that this is what you need to focus on is the how of shared value. So working along with the Shared Value Initiative team, my colleagues at FSG, we really started to dig into the how of shared value. But we also recognize that purpose, the growing interest in purpose, it was important that we connect the two ideas so that companies could better understand what role does purpose actually play, or shared value actually play in the achievement of purpose. So what you see here is a portfolio of practices that help a company be purpose-led. And when you think about trying to be a purpose-led company, you know, each company is different, and there's no one policy or practice or activity that's going to make a company purpose-led. It's really a portfolio of practices. So for example, you have a deep commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion. You have progressive employee policies, that you have strategic sustainability and philanthropy programs. Those are some examples of what a purpose-led company might have in their portfolio. What we would argue is that shared value is the most powerful piece of a company's portfolio. And it's for all the reasons that Michael Porter said, that, you know, this is how you drive change at scale, because you are levering the core business. It also helps to drive innovation when you're trying to solve a problem from a different angle, leveraging a societal issue, that you may come up with new innovations, and those innovations might help to create company distinction and advantage. And then what that does, it allows the company to continue to invest in solving the societal issues and creating that resilience that Mark just talked about. So that's how shared value connects into this approach to being a purpose-led company. And we felt that presenting this model was really important, and it's been a big unlock for companies that I have talked to as they've looked at this model. Now let's get into the actual framework that undergirds the Purpose Playbook. And it's a framework that is driven by a very intuitive relationship between the elements that are in the framework. So it starts with purpose. And we say that purpose is not just at the beginning, but leading with purpose is also at the center of this model. And it should be the heartbeat, the beacon, whatever analogy you'd like to use, that helps to drive your intent every day. We've been thinking a lot about purpose and what it means. You heard Dane mention the definition as well as some initial thoughts, and he did a lot of work in really defining what makes a purpose worth having. So Dane, I'm going to ask you to jump in here and talk a little bit to the audience about what makes a purpose worth having.
Thanks, Bobbi. So as I mentioned earlier, we define purpose as being a company's reason for being that simultaneously helps solve a social problem and create significant financial value for the company. And now I'd like to elaborate on this a bit more. For purpose to be meaningful, it needs to be significant, authentic, profitable, and serious. So significant means that purpose is focused on helping to solve a meaningful social problem. It could be one of the SDGs, one of the Sustainable Development Goals, or a challenging local problem. What it can't be is just to maximize shareholder returns. It's not enough for a company's purpose to just make life more convenient for its customers or to make good use of technology. A purpose needs to be significant. It needs to have social impact at its core. Authentic means that the purpose has to be real. It has to have history. It has to be part of the culture and part of the DNA. Purpose cannot be invented. If it's authentic, then customers and employees and partners and communities should all be able to see the way that purpose influences the decisions that a company makes. Maybe the most controversial argument we make is that purpose needs to be profitable. We argue that it needs to be profitable because only if the purpose is profitable will the company have the incentive to constantly innovate and scale. And finally, the purpose needs to be serious. This means that senior leaders need to be held accountable, and performance management systems for the companies should reward leaders that are delivering on the company purpose. So that's a little bit more about how we define purpose. And Bobbi, I wonder if you could say a little bit more about the role of culture in creating, defining, and strengthening company purpose.
Absolutely, Dane. Thank you for that. Yes, so again, purpose at the beginning and at the center of this model. But as Dane mentioned, culture is a very important factor. And so that's why we made culture actually a box. So go back to thinking about this as an intuitive framework. So if purpose is the heartbeat, culture is the container in which it comes alive. And inside every company is a culture. So for example, if you think about how culture can help or hinder your purpose potential, if your company is more short-term oriented in its mindset, it might be hard to do purpose and shared value because those are more medium to longer term investments. Another example of a company trait that might actually work in your favor is if you have a very collaborative culture that shared value and purpose require engaging stakeholders, internally and externally. So those are examples of how culture matters. In the Purpose Playbook, you'll see some exercises that you could use to help think about your company culture and how it perhaps may help or hinder your purpose potential. So now we have those first two elements. Then we introduce 3 practice areas: strategy, operations, and people. And if you look at these practices, they are connected to purpose. And that was very intentional in this intuitive model, that purpose should come alive in your strategy, operation, and your people practices. And they're also all connected to each other, meaning that they influence each other. Dane's going to walk us through the practices that sit under this, and then I'll come back and talk to you a little bit more about how those practices are detailed in the playbook. So Dane, over to you.
Thanks, Bobby. Bobby mentioned each of the practice areas has 3 practices. So for strategy, we have opportunities identification, we have sources of distinction, and strategy, goals, and resources. One great example of a company that has made crucial strategic decisions to further its purpose is Discovery, the health and life insurance company that was founded in South Africa and is now present on 4 continents. So Discovery, recognizing that the unmet need that customers were feeling to have their insurance company focused on helping them live healthier lives, they developed their vitality strategy that aligned company success with helping their customers get healthy and stay healthy. Now in this operations part of the playbook, here we have innovating for scale, new models of cooperation, and measurement and reporting. I love the example that Enel provides around innovating for scale. At one point, green power was just one small division inside the larger Enel company. But Francesco Starace, the head of green power, was promoted to be CEO of the whole company, and now the full company purpose is to transform itself into a green energy company. Finally, in the people practice area, we have organizational design, talent acquisition and development, and engagement and communications. So we've seen in our work with many different companies that they use different structures to successfully advance their purpose and their shared value. It really depends on the culture, the competitive positioning, and where they are on their journey. So Novartis has a division that is focused on shared value. Eli Lilly has a shared value quarterback. Other companies like BASF have developed shared value champions in different functions and different business units. Now I'll send it back to you, Bobby. Could you elaborate on more of the content on the playbook for our audience?
Sure. Thank you, Dane. So this is what's inside the playbook, if you haven't had a chance to review it already. So Dane talked about the 9 practices, and for each practice, what we do is we describe that practice, and then we describe what does it look like when you do this well? What does good look like? And we try to describe it in the form of a behavior so you can identify it, you could see it, observe it. We then provide action steps that companies could consider to take. And one of the things we really want to emphasize with the playbook is that it is not a recipe book. It's not intended to say if you follow steps 1, 2, and 3 that you'll have a souffle. The intent here is that every company that practices shared value has a different set of assets. And what you need to do is you need to use the playbook and you need to look at the assets that you have, the societal issues that you feel are material to your business that you think it's important for you to help solve, and then use the playbook to guide you through the actions that you should consider. We then provide examples, and we tried to make the examples very specific to the practice so that you didn't have to read a 10-page case study to find the example in the case study. However, if you would like to read the case study, we've included that link so that you can see the broader context. We've also included some exercises, as I mentioned before, and a checklist for each practice, just to make sure that you've considered all of these things. In addition to what's in the playbook, we have a quick assessment that is online. You're going to hear a little bit more about this from one of our speakers, so I won't steal her thunder. But if you haven't already, please take the quick assessment. It will help you better navigate the playbook, and it's 12 short questions that you could probably do in less than 10 minutes. So Dane, I'm going to pass it over to you, and then really excited to hear from your speakers.
Thanks, Bobby. In the next couple of months, to help companies that are interested in digging in a little bit deeper on the Purpose Playbook, we'll be launching Purpose Playbook Learning Cohorts. These are a series of 4 intimate virtual workshops over 6 months. We'll cap it at just 5 to 7 companies in each virtual session. And it will be an opportunity to do a deep dive into the playbook elements, to network with peers, to build community, and learn from faculty of FSG shared value experts. It will also include 1 individual coaching session for each participating company. If you want to learn more about this, you can go to www.purposeplaybook.org to find out more about the playbook. So what we now would like to do is to hear from some of the shared value experts who helped us build and test the Purpose Playbook. They can share some thoughts around how this tool can be used to advance your purpose practice. And we're going to start with Marta Herrera Gonzalez, who's the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility from CEMEX. Marta?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Michael, Mark, Bobby, Dane, and all the team. Good day, everyone. Greetings from Mexico. Technology today was not aligned with me, so I'm sorry. It is a great honor to be part of the launch of this Purpose Playbook with a great cohort of leaders and with the guidance of FSG and the Share Value Initiative that we have been part of. It is also gratifying to contribute with our experience to such a great tool, which will be very useful to guide and strengthen the business ecosystem and on finding or improving our purpose and creating social and environmental impact. For CEMEX, this is pure gold, and we'll build up on our 20 years of experience on share value initiatives, which also has and still is a learning journey for us and how to create social environmental impact through connecting to our purpose of building a better future. Let me share you that to date, we have worked with more than 7 million people through our affordable housing share value initiatives in Latin America and through our global alternative fuels model. For example, only in 2019, we mitigated 7.5 million tons of CO2 avoided and more than 30,000 tons of waste to landfill. This way, we contribute to cost savings for CEMEX and municipalities globally, and environmentally and economically to cities and communities and livelihoods. Internally, as Bobby mentioned, we have conducted the assessment, and the outputs of that help us identify focus areas, but also to recognize where our strengths and expertise is, and with whom we should collaborate to make the ecosystem stronger in the long run. Collaboration for me, it's key with different functional areas. One of the key takeaways was the recommendation to consider common blind spots. To do so, we really need to consider within our innovation processes not only the cross-functional teams, but a broader set of stakeholders who we need to engage with them differently to unlock their value. As we learn, companies can capture value from our stakeholders. We have been having deep conversation and co-design, co-creation with them. We can also develop share value innovations, especially in these times of uncertainty, where we really need to rethink and reshape our traditional approach. The Purpose Playbooks come at a very opportune time for us, so we can use it as a guidance to move forward and unlock new value opportunities from and for our stakeholders. In CEMEX, we are using and planning to continue using the assessment in different ways with different stakeholders. For example, with employees, for developing capabilities and shifting mindsets and culture. In this COVID-19 context, for us, it is crucial to support the resilience of our businesses, our industry, our value chain, our communities in general, by helping the economic recovery and to be better prepared for the future. We will share the playbook with internal committees that we already have, which are cross-functional teams based in all our business units in the 50 countries in which we operate. And in addition, we will have an online training with employees and an internal share value challenge, among other actions. With communities, I believe this is an opportunity to connect employees with purpose and the Sustainable Development Goals, and to address pandemic challenges such as, for example, how to support healthy and secure livelihoods, how to support local, micro, small, and medium enterprises for the economic recovery, how to advance the Sustainable Development Goals by tapping into our gold business, how to support vulnerable workers, how to address youth unemployment, how to contribute to circular economy, etc. With the supply chain, for example, the waste management systems and the alternative fuels programs that we have, this brings us a great opportunity to apply the framework to scope and implement strategies in partnership with local ecosystem actors that could potentially enable higher substitution rates. With our clients, we will use it on digitalization and so on. So as we go through this journey, we have learned and discovered knowledge and tools that can apply to scale our impact and be replicated in the different regions. This Purpose Playbook is bringing us new valuable elements, such as the why, through the lens of our purpose, which makes totally sense to unlock these new opportunities with our stakeholders. Secondly, and especially on the how, through these key three areas that they mentioned, and also on the what with these 9 practices. So if I only have time to share one thought with share value practitioners like you, it will be that with the Purpose Playbook, we will be able to have a simple but deep guide on how to evolve our business culture to help transformation of societal challenges into business opportunities, and to build resilient and sustainable business solutions from within. So be wise and use it, and put purpose into action together. I'm sure we can develop and strengthen a broader ecosystem in which we all can win. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Marta, and thanks so much for the commitment that CEMEX has to community development and to building a circular economy and to youth employment. We thank you for your purpose and the way that you're demonstrating that purpose. And thank you very much for sharing with the group as well the way that you're using the assessment to and the playbook to drive your purpose forward. Next, I'd like to go on to Erin Byrne. Erin Byrne is with Novo Nordisk, and Erin is the Senior Director of Corporate Sustainability and Social Impact at Novo Nordisk. It's great to have Erin join us for this webinar. She's been part of the playbook development process really right from the very start. Erin?
Great. Thank you so much, Dane, and good afternoon and good morning and good evening, depending on where you're sitting today in the world. And you know, Dane and Bobby and Georgie, when we spoke a few weeks ago, you referenced that it took a village to get the playbook where it is today. And while that is so true, I've been reflecting on that term, it takes a village. It has so many meanings. Recently for me, I'm missing my village as I homeschool my 3 kids and try to focus on work every day. But it really does take a village to overall embed shared value and purpose, or your triple bottom line commitments in an organization as well. And there are so many tools in this playbook that can really help with that. So I want to highlight the aspects that have been really critical to me. And those are the importance of building cross-functional support and the fact that it can be a journey. And I'm happy to say that the playbook really addresses those. At Novo Nordisk, it really is our company purpose and our commitment in these areas that guide our business decisions and the way that we work every day. We actually feel so strongly that we've written our commitment to ensuring that we're being financially, socially, and environmentally sound into our articles of association or our company bylaws. But even with strong commitments and actions like that, it's something that must be championed and needs cross-functional support internally as well. Many people, not by any bad intention, you know, we all get focused on our to-dos and we forget about letting that company purpose or that shared value or those related commitments really guide the work that we do every day. And that's really why it is important to have these champions throughout the company and help advocate for these concepts and these practices along the way. So the need to gather that village or your internal champions is really important. And depending on your organization or your coworkers' mandate or responsibility, some colleagues are going to be easier to jump on board than others. But one of the many aspects of this Purpose Playbook is that it includes a framework for building cross-functional support that is going to be critical to everyone trying to advance purpose and shared value. I like the fact that I can even reflect on it too, because while I'm really proud of the inroads that we've made over the years, I also recognize at the same time, as I mentioned before, it can be a journey, and we're always challenging ourselves on how we can do more or be better at this. And sometimes, honestly, it's one step forward and 2 steps back. And that's why I think the Purpose Playbook is so beneficial. It really allows companies to assess where they are in the journey, and that assessment that you mentioned a few minutes ago. And it really allows practical steps for what you can do based on where you are. And as you said, Bobbi, it's not quite a recipe, but it's more of that guidebook, that playbook. And I appreciate that there's also hints in the back of it that address some common pitfalls or suggestions on how to deal with some setbacks. You know, many times throughout the years of collaborating with the shared value community, I've often heard a lot of people say, well, just when I thought I was making progress, I got derailed, or new leadership came in and I had to start over. And I can relate to that one. It's happened to me a couple times too. Or another one is, I get the concept, I just don't know where to begin. And I think that's exactly why, you know, this Purpose Playbook has been created. And that's what's so fantastic about it, and the resources within, that an organization can pick it up. They can decide on one practice or one action that they can start on. And there's just other steps that are laid out, you know, and suggestions that you can take for after that. So even if you need to start with identifying a few people across your organization, get them into a room or get them on Zoom, and give them the playbook or even just the executive summary. Start the conversation. That is a tangible roadmap for how the discussion can go, and then what you might want to consider to do after that. So even if you've done that and you're a little bit more advanced, the playbook also allows you to really roll up your sleeves and dig deeper onto those 9 practices to help your organization advance even further. So I thank you for allowing me to be a part of this, and I can tell you that I definitely plan to disseminate and reflect on this even further, because purpose is at the heart of what we do at Novo Nordisk. So back to you.
Erin, thank you. So we really appreciate the fact that you have contributed to the development of the playbook. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce a colleague from Hong Kong who was up very late at night to be with us live. Gayle Loiseau is the CEO of the Shared Value Project Hong Kong. And Gayle, I'm going to turn it over to you for your comments.
Thank you, Bobbi. Thank you for letting me share a few thoughts here. Actually, compared to all the long-time shared value practitioners here, I'm relatively new to shared value. I come from the business side, and I've worked for 20 years in the luxury industry. But actually, during all this time, there was something missing for me. Because I could not make the connection between all the time and energy I was putting in my work and the issues that I cared about, like climate change, for example. So of course the job was glamorous, but I couldn't get excited about the fact that, you know, in the end I was just working and using my energy to push more fragrance or jewelry in the hands of people who frankly didn't really need it. So I had to bring in the sense of purpose outside of work by volunteering or trying to reduce my waste. Then 8 years ago, I came to Hong Kong. And, you know, maybe with the midlife crisis kicking in, I actually decided that I would address that piece that was missing. And then the question was how, because I also didn't want to drop everything that I was good at, which was the business side, to become, I don't know, an environmental engineer, for example. And so that's when I came across the concept of shared value. And for me, the penny dropped, really, because there was the connection between business and society. And there was a roadmap to be relevant in communities and align the profit and the purpose. So that made complete sense to me. And actually, I thought it was common sense. And so a year ago, I was lucky to join Shared Value Project Hong Kong. But here we live in a region where concepts like purpose or business for good can sound quite fluffy. People here are very pragmatic, they are down to earth, and they need to focus on tools, like very concrete steps to transform their organization. They know why. We've been talking a lot about the why and the what and how. They know why they need to transform. They are just interested in how. And that's where the shared value and the Purpose Playbook can really help. So at Shared Value Project Hong Kong, we're constantly trying to bring theory into practice to help our members build a business case for shared value. Inspiration is not always enough. They need, again, concrete steps to look at their business, their industry, their communities through a new lens. And so one way we do this here in Greater China is that we convene experts on a specific societal issue that's relevant to our region. So for example, mental health, aging society, youth development, or climate change. And so these experts from across sectors come and share with our corporate members their insights, always with the business angle, so that our members can get to understand the underlying cause of an issue and identify business opportunities where they can design innovative solutions that can address that issue profitably. And we're really excited that the Purpose Playbook can help us with that process, can help with the ideation session, so that the members can bring their purpose to life through shared value. And when we speak about these particular issues, can help the thinking through the three practice areas to how we can design innovative solutions. So at the moment, we're working on youth development. Remember that in Hong Kong, we've been going through a lot of social unrest, and there's still uncertainty, actually, that it's not going to start again after the virus crisis slows down. So the playbook comes at a time where companies realize the limitations of their CSR activities, and they realize the interconnectedness. I mean, it's come as an amazing shock to many when they see that even pillars of the Hong Kong economy, really strong organizations, are possibly failing. So we hear a lot from our members the importance about building resilience, even if they need to trade off some efficiency, about creating relevance in their organization. And so I think we're going to use the Purpose Playbook a lot to help our members through that process. In the end, the organization that will be successful will be the ones who we said have a clear purpose and who contribute to building the environment they need to thrive. So, and not so the branch on which they are sitting, as we say in French. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Gayle. And I want to say thank you to everyone. We are almost at time, and we were hoping to have time for questions. What we will do is we'll take the questions and present a blog that answers hopefully most of the questions there. There will be a survey that will be going out in about an hour. It'd be great if you could give us feedback, and also continue to give us feedback on the playbook. Also, there will be a recording of this webinar available at the end of this week. We will be sending it out to everyone on this distribution. I want to thank all of our speakers, my co-host Dane Smith. I want to thank the audience and also the Shared Value Initiative team for putting this webinar together. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.